Good morning, church. So glad to see everybody this morning. If you're visiting with us, I want you to know you're welcome here. We're just here to worship the Lord together. Would you stand with us? You know, there's three things you got to have. I told the first service to have church. You got to have God's Word. You got to have the Holy Spirit. You got to have believers. I think we got all that here this morning. So let's worship Him, okay? Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to the hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus, as the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shouts with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And with every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender, for He is Lord and He has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender, He is Lord and He has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Aren't you glad this morning? Sing with me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Grace that taught my heart to believe, and grace my fear chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve my tomb. The sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever mine. Will be forever mine. You are forever mine. My chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. Unending love, amazing grace. Unending love, amazing grace. If you're thankful for that amazing grace, let Him know this morning.
All right, guys, I got to tell y'all something that I have been looking forward to for a long time. We've been doing altar prayer now, every Sunday for years and years and years. COVID got in the way a little bit. It kind of made us switch up how we did it, but we still took time right near the beginning, middle of the service to pray. We've come down to the altar, and of course we stand sometimes, but I love when we have opportunities to get people maybe a little bit more in unison, when we just create a little bit of closeness. And I want you to be a part of this. We haven't done this in a long time, but one of my favorite things that we would do, again, before COVID, during the altar prayer, is that we would circle up all in this sanctuary. Some of y'all remember what I'm talking about, don't you? Right? We'd circle up all in this sanctuary, and from wall to wall to wall to wall, and we'd stand next to each other, and we'd hold hands. Now, I'm giving you a heads up. We're going to hold hands, all right? So if you're real careful about who you hold hands with, hold hands next to people that you'll hold hands with. But I don't think most of you care. I don't care. I'll hold hands with anybody except the devil. But I'll hold hands with anybody else. And we're just gonna pray and let the Lord lead. And I'm so thankful. I've been praying, Lord, please just give us the Sunday for this, because I miss this. I really do. I miss this. And today's going to be the day. How about that? Amen? Does that sound good to you? Praise the Lord. All right, so go ahead and just spread out. Find a wall. Some of you are going to have to come up this way, because it's going to be a square circle. There you go. Thank you, Miss Vicki. We've got some folks. A square circle. They don't teach you that shape in elementary school, but you can learn it in church. A square circle. There you go. There you go. So again, you may not learn this shape in elementary school, but this is the Fair Plains square circle. It's got a little bend, and that's okay. We got room for everybody. Room for everybody. And we've not done this for a long time, so just to take a moment to appreciate this opportunity. Just take a moment to appreciate all the people that you get to worship with. This is a way for you to see just about everybody that is here during this service. Look at all these faces. All these kids and all these seniors. A lot of moms, dads, grandmas and grandpas. And friends. And then you'll probably see some faces you say, you know what? I don't know exactly who that is. That's good too. Every church has got to have some faces like that too. It's in the words of one of my daughters, it's bowing if you know everybody. Ellie used to say when she was little, she'd say bowing. You want there to be something new and someone new, and God has blessed our church just consistently with people that He leads here, and He's led you here. At some point in the past, He brought you here, and He had a reason for it and a purpose for it. So here's what we're going to do. For our altar prayer this morning, you of course have to pray for the ones that you're holding hands with. You got somebody on your right and your left. They need your prayers, okay? Whoever that is. If you don't know them, just share names right quick, okay? Go ahead and do that. Tell them your first name. Does it take y'all that long just to share your name? You're telling your life story. I'm from such and such. Here's what I do for a living. Okay, so you've got the person on your right and left that you get to pray for, but now you have to find someone on another wall that you're going to pray for, right? So if you're over here, you've got 3 options, by the way. Square has 4 sides. So you've got some options, but you've got to look around the sanctuary and find one face. It's okay if you don't know their name. Find one face. Say, yep, that's the one I'm praying for. Whether it's a little baby in somebody's arms or somebody 20 years older than you, whoever it is, you find that face. Now, when you're praying for other people, here's what I think is one of the keys to success. Pray for them like you pray for you. Pray for their needs like you pray for your needs. Pray for their concerns like you pray for your concerns. Pray for their family the way you pray for your family. Pray for their children like you pray for your children. And what that does is it attaches some fervency and some passion to that prayer. So that even if you don't know all the details, your faith is still just as much given to the Lord on their behalf as it is when you're praying for those things in your own life, okay? All right? So let's bow our heads. Go ahead and start praying. I'll close this out, but you can pray. Hey, you don't have to be in a hurry. The needs of your brothers and sisters in Christ are just as important as yours. You don't want them rushing through a prayer on your behalf. Lord, we bless your name. We're so thankful for this moment right here. Thank you for putting us in a place where we can have these memories. And they may only last for a few minutes, but Lord, these are the things that just stick in our hearts. This is what we need to remember. This is the church, hand in hand, with one another, for one another. Not just in our location. We're not just here in the same sanctuary, but we are praying on each other's behalf. Lord, there are people in this sanctuary, they're doing real intercession. The way that you orchestrate and direct our eyes and our attention, Lord, you've got some people praying for some specific things. It was necessary, God, and here's how you've worked it out, and we thank you for it. Lord, I just feel compelled to pray for each need in this sanctuary. For each person that's here, from the youngest to the oldest, Lord. Lord, I intercede for them with my faith, God, on their behalf. And I pray, Lord, that you might come to their aid and rescue in only a way that you can. And I pray that you would show yourself strong, Lord, concerning their ailment, God, whether it's physical or mental or emotional or financial, Lord. You're our provider. And you're also our shepherd, Lord. You take good care of your sheep. Your word tells us that you lead us in paths of righteousness for your own name's sake, and that's what I petition you for, Father. That you would lead them. Lord, I pray for their tenderheartedness, that they would be obedient to your drawings, that they would be sensitive to your leadings, that they would follow. You say in your word that your sheep know your voice. Lord, that we would hear you calling and that we would respond. I pray that for each of my brothers and sisters here today. And Lord, I pray for the things maybe that nobody else knows about but them, things they're just dealing with personally. A struggle, God, that they might have. Lord, deliver them. You are our deliverer. Remind them even now that you are strong and mighty and able to save, no matter what predicament we've gotten ourselves into. I pray that they would put their trust in you, even for this concern that they've kept to themselves. Father, I'm thankful for the salvation of many in this sanctuary. But this is also a good opportunity for us to intercede for those here that may not know you as Savior and Lord. I pray that you might draw them to yourselves through the power of your Holy Spirit and the preaching of your word, so that Jesus would be exalted in their lives just as he's been exalted in our own. You have a heart to save. And so we cry out, Lord, for the salvation of our friends and our neighbors, our family, our children, and even those we've never met until today, that they might be born again by your great grace that we just sang about a moment ago, that amazing, amazing grace. Lord, thank you for these special times that you give us. We love you and we pray all this in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen, amen, amen. And we're going to worship some more, so go ahead. Get ready to sing.
Search the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. You came along, you put me back together. The God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. Give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. then you should let him know right now. Darkness tries to roll over my bones. When sorrow comes to steal the joy I own. When brokenness and pain is all I know. Oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. Sing out. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. Oh, there's power that can empty out a grave. Oh, there's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. Sing out. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. When I'm standing in your love, oh, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Amen. Woo. You know, and that song is a good word for some of you. Vicki Pilkington won it this morning. She got it right up there. That song was a good word for you if you struggle with worry and fear and anxiety and stress. Can I just help put an illustration in your mind real quick while you're opening your Bibles to Matthew chapter 6? This won't take but a second. It'll give you time to get there. Matthew chapter 6. Imagine the size of all of your fears and worries, all of your concerns. I want you to imagine just how big they are, right? I mean, they are daunting. They can seem overwhelming. There's more than one of them. You're dealing with some serious giants that you're facing in your life, right? I mean, they're serious, right? Now, can you please compare that to the size and scope of God? Who wins? As daunting as your problems may appear, they are infinitesimal compared to your God. You need to remember that. Don't get hung up on fear. I love that song. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. And what does that mean? When I am focused on you and not my problems. Matthew chapter 6, you got it ready? You got it ready? The Bible is God's word. It has authority in my life. The Bible changes me. I don't change the Bible. Matthew chapter 6, this is Jesus speaking in his Sermon on the Mount, considered the greatest sermon ever preached by the greatest preacher to ever live. Matthew chapter 6, we'll be reading 19, 20, and 21. This is Jesus speaking. He says, don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. Amen? You can be seated. Thank you. This is our third message in the series, The Way of the Master. Now, what that phrase by itself means is very important if it's going to be applied in our lives. The very phrase, the way of the master, has significance for the Christian. Because automatically, when I say the word master, who do you think of? Who is the master of the Christian? Jesus. When you accepted Christ on the day of your salvation, you had to confess Jesus Christ as Lord. The Bible says in Romans chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Now, we use the word Lord in church. It's a religious sounding word. We don't really use that in our normal vocabulary. When you're at work, when you're at home, you don't use the word Lord very much, and so it's kind of easy for us to forget the significance of that word. Jesus is Lord. Well, how about this? The word Lord literally means master. So when you accepted Christ, when you were born again, you declared on that day, Jesus is my master. You can't be a Christian if you didn't make that declaration, because it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, master. It's a part of becoming a follower of Christ. There is no Christianity apart from Jesus being Lord. If Jesus is not Lord, then you are not saved. Because it says, then you will be saved upon confessing that and believing that. So when we say that we want to know the way of the master, it's simply a Christian's desire to say, Jesus, you are in control of me. You are in charge of me. Which way should I go? What should I do? I want to make sure you understand something as we move forward concerning all of these things. And in week one, it was forgiveness, and last week it was sacrificing the need to be accepted by others. And today it's generosity. But concerning all of these things, you have to be willing to recognize that because you are a follower of Christ, Jesus has the right to rule your life. Because you are a Christian, the name itself declares that Jesus has the right to rule your life. If Jesus does not have the right to rule your life, then he is not master, Lord of your life, which means he is not your Savior. If he's your Savior, he's your Lord and Master, which means he has the right to rule. Christian, you need to stop tiptoeing around this subject in your life. It's not so much a matter of what do I want to do. It's a matter of what have I agreed to do. Upon confessing Jesus and upon receiving what the Bible calls the gift of salvation, you agreed that Jesus had the right to rule your life. That was your part. He wipes away the sins. He forgives them all. He gives you eternal life. He puts his Holy Spirit within you, and you relinquish your own sovereignty. You relinquish it, and you give it to him. He becomes sovereign over you. So, Christian, we should want to know the way of our master. In other words, Jesus, what do you want to do? And if it's what you want to do, then it's what I want to do. Jesus, what do you want to say? And if it's what you want to say, then it's what I want to say. Jesus, what desires do you have? And if they're your desires, then they're going to be my desires. Because you're my master. You have the right to rule over me. Christian, a lot of reasons that you struggle so much with sin sometimes, not all the time, but one of the reasons why Christians struggle so much with sin is they forget that they've given up sovereignty. They try and assume that role in their own life is being in charge. And so when you're in charge, you get to make the decisions. You get to do what you want to do. But here's the thing, as a Christian, you're not in charge. Jesus is. So when temptation comes, it's not about, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? It's really, this isn't my decision to make. Jesus, you're in control. What do you say? And because you're master, I have to obey your command. What do you say? And Jesus says, don't do that. And you say, well, I can't do it. Can't do it. It's not the way of the master. This would strengthen so many Christians' personal daily walks, because you've got a lot of people who feel like they're just trying to walk around fighting the good fight all by themselves. They think that they've got on some of this armor, and they've heard some of this preaching, and they know some of the songs, and they pray some of the prayers, but they still feel like they're alone, when in actuality that's not the case at all. If you'd recognize it, you've got the hand of God upon you all the time. You've got the hand of God upon you. You've got the Spirit of God within you all the time. You're not alone. You have one ruling over you. What is the way of the master? In week 1, it was forgiveness. Forgiveness is not the way of David. I'm just going to tell you. Forgiveness is not the default in this heart. The default in this heart is being offended, holding a grudge, wanting to repay. That's the default. My default is not if Barbara S. Purdue slaps me across the cheek. Look at how strong she is. If she slapped me across the cheek, it's not my default to say, Barbara, I forgive you. It's not in my nature to be struck and to say, I just want you to know I forgive you. It's in his. It's the master's nature to forgive when offended, to forgive when wounded. And so I have to, if I'm going to follow him, I have to learn to forgive like he does. And it is a learned behavior because it doesn't come naturally to me. I have to learn to follow him in forgiveness. And then last week, sacrificing my desires to be accepted by others. Do you know that you naturally want to be welcomed by other people? Do you know that you naturally want to be embraced by other groups? You know, you naturally want to kind of fit in with whatever clique you've got your eye on at the time. You naturally are going to drift in the direction of wanting them to want you. That's natural. What's unnatural? Resisting that and saying, I don't need their acceptance because I have his. That is unnatural. It doesn't come naturally to you, and it doesn't to me either. So I have to follow his way. I have to learn to follow the master. And the master says, you don't need their acceptance, you have mine. You don't need to be in their clique, you're in my family. Don't compromise with them to fit in with them. I've taken you as you are. I've forgiven you and cleansed you, made you holy. You don't need to do anything to be a part of that group. You just stick with me. It's not about what comes naturally to us. As a matter of fact, it's most of the time going to be what is unnatural to us because Jesus isn't natural or normal. He's supernatural. He's far above normal or average. Now, the same thing with generosity. You know, some people kind of naturally recoil at the word. Just naturally, like, you know, it's kind of like touching a hot stove. Ooh. Generosity. Somebody said, I wonder what he's going to preach on next week because I'm going to tune out of this one. Don't tune out. Don't tune out. You see, just as forgiveness is the way of the master and just as sacrifice is the way of the master, so is generosity. In preparing for this message, I thought about some of the most generous people I know, and I know a lot of generous people. Think about the generous people that you know. Think about the example that they've set. Think about the willingness that they've displayed to give over and above in instance after instance, because generosity isn't just something that you can corner and do one time, right? It's a lifestyle. Generosity was the lifestyle of Jesus, and it's supposed to be the lifestyle of every Christian. Here's a definition for generosity. You ready? A willingness to give liberally, both in attitude and action. Not being forced to help. Not feeling pressured to give. But a willingness. In other words, a desire that comes from within. A willingness to give liberally. Not to give in restraint or not to give just the minimum, but to give liberally. And then here's the hook. In attitude and action. Because we've all heard the people who do a big talk when it comes to letting you know about the plight of other people. You know, when some catastrophe happens, they'll get those celebrities up there on those telethons, you know. Give, we need you to give. We need you to give. We need you to give. Listen to these stories. Listen to these atrocities. Listen to how horrible this is. Don't you feel sorry for these people? We need you to phone in right now and give. Then come to find out, how much did they give? They were paid to come and do the telethon. There are people who talk a big talk when it comes to generosity. I mean, you would think they might be the most generous people in the world the way they talk about it. But in actuality, it's only in attitude but never in action. True generosity, the generosity of Jesus, goes beyond the verbal and into the physical. It's something that can be measured. They don't just talk about helping, they help. They don't just talk about giving, they give. They don't just talk about doing, they do. That's the mark of someone who has the generosity of Jesus, because that's exactly the example that he set for us. You see, every follower of Christ should be known for their generosity, because the most generous person to ever live was Jesus. Christian, you should be known for your generosity. No exceptions. Every Christian should be known for their generosity. Why? Because Jesus is our master. We're imitating his example, following his lead, and therefore, if he is generous, then we are generous. It's that simple. There are no exceptions to where a Christian might say, well, that's someone else's spiritual gift. I'm sorry, generosity is not a spiritual gift, it's a character quality. Now, there is a gift of giving, but that is not the character quality of being generous. Every Christian should have this noble trait as a part of their everyday life. and it is noble to be generous. What does it take to be a generous follower of Christ? Like what am I going to have to be willing to say or do or recognize if I am going to be a generous Christian? Because I can admit, you probably can too, being generous isn't always easy. Sometimes it is. When it's like family, right? When it's family and they're in need, or when you really like them, it's okay. It's easy to be generous. You want to give to them, right? When it's a really good friend that you've known for a long time and they're in a struggle, it's easy to be generous. I'm going to help you out. You're my friend. If it's somebody in our church that's going through some kind of health crisis, we say, hey, we're going to take up a love offering for so-and-so, and people give. Sometimes it's easy to be generous, but a lot of times it's not. A lot of times we're resistant to generosity. Like when it's somebody we don't know. When it's a need that we're not familiar with. When it's a leading prompting of the Lord and we'd rather not. It's not always easy to be generous. So what does it take in those moments? What does it take for me to be a generous follower of Christ? Based on the passage of Scripture that you and I read a few moments ago, here are three. First, being generous requires awareness. In order to be generous, you have to be aware of the fact that you can be generous. There are so many people who look at their possessions, who look at their means, and think so very little of it. They think that other people, more affluent people, more wealthy people, they can be the ones who are generous. I just can't be generous. Well, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is not preaching to the elite. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is not preaching in Jerusalem to the wealthy. Jesus doesn't have a crowd of influencers right here before him. In the Sermon on the Mount, he's in the wilderness. There have been people that have ventured out to listen. His disciples are before him, and he's teaching these truths in Matthew chapter 5 and 6 and 7 and so on, right? And he's sharing these things mostly to a bunch of rural, agriculturally based, poor people. That's who he's talking to. There's probably some business owners in there. There's probably some folks that have done well for themselves. But for the most part, this message is being preached to people who you wouldn't think have great means. But yet, what did Jesus say? The very first verse that we read, he wanted them to be aware that they possessed something. And in verse 19, he said, your treasure. Your treasure. Now, when I hear the word treasure, I don't think of a small amount, do you? Do you think of like $2 or $3? If somebody told you, I found a treasure in my backyard, would you think, I just found a handful of nickels? No, you wouldn't think that. Immediately, your mind would start seeing like gems and diamonds and gold. You say, what'd you find? What'd you find, right? Because when you think about a treasure, you think about something of great value. Something that's extravagant. It's a treasure. And Jesus says, hey, all you poor people, listen to me out here in the wilderness. Don't put your treasure in the things of this earth. He was even telling them that they had treasure. Well, if Jesus would tell people in the middle of nowhere who have very little that they have treasure, then surely you should be aware that you have treasure as well. 3 times. The first he says, don't put your treasure here. Do put your treasure here. And in verse 21 he says, because where your treasure is going to tell me where your heart is. 3 times he referred to their resources as their treasure. You need to be aware, Christian, that you are the possessor of great treasure. Like, I can't be generous if I all the time think I'm the pauper, right? If I'm always the poor guy with little to nothing, just trying to scrounge up enough food to feed my family, right? If I'm always that guy, I'll never be generous. If that is my mindset and attitude, I'll never be generous. But if I take Jesus at his word and think, I have great treasure, I am the possessor of great treasure, and Jesus cares where I put it. He cares about what I do with it. Then I am likely to be generous. I'm likely to look for opportunities to be generous. So here's your treasure, Christian. You ready? Your treasure is your money, your time, and your abilities. You are the possessor of great treasure. Your money. However much it is, Jesus calls it treasure. I promise you, I've been in places on planet Earth where what you have is a treasure compared to what they don't have. Your time, no matter how well educated, how wealthy, no matter what you possess, what you've accumulated, here's the thing, time's a great equalizer. Everybody's got the same amount. You have got the same amount of time every day that the wealthiest man on the planet has. That is your treasure. And your abilities. You have strengths and skills, you have talents that other people don't have. You have knowledge that other people don't have. And they have their strengths and skill set too. They have their knowledge base as well, but it's different than yours. Yours is your treasure and theirs is their treasure. You need to be aware that you possess these things. And Jesus calls it your treasure. If you're going to be generous, you got to know what you've got. If someone had deposited $10 million in a bank account and put it in my name, and I never knew about it, what good would it do? How could I bless or benefit anybody? First, I need to be told that this is in my account before I can do something with it. Jesus is doing that here. He's letting you know that you have a great treasure in your account so that you can do something with it. Now, the second thing, if you're going to live a life of generosity, being generous means investment. Being generous means investment. I can't claim generosity if I never take any of my treasure and put it somewhere else. Like if I just keep it all to myself, I can't claim to be a generous person. If I keep all of my time for me, if I keep all of my skills and strengths and talents for me, if I keep all of my money for me, I will never be generous. However, if I'm going to follow the example of Jesus, I am going to look for ways to invest. That's exactly what he did, isn't it? Look at how Jesus invested his resources. By the way, he was not a man of great material wealth, but he had some possessions that were priceless. The power to heal. Did he invest it? The power to forgive. Did he invest it? The power to speak life over a dead body. Did he invest it? He also had time. Did he keep it for himself or did he invest his time? He invested it. In 12 men and a group of women who came along, and then in crowds and in multitudes, and in us. His strengths, his skills, his abilities, he invested all of these things. No greater teacher to ever walk this earth. And what did he do with that ability? He taught. He shared. He revealed. You see, Jesus was generous because Jesus was always willing to make an investment. That's why you want to follow Jesus' example and not the government's. Because the government will invest your money, but not their own. The government will expense your resources, but not their own. Be mindful of this, because I've been totally serious. As more and more people try to point to the government as the solution, especially those who consider themselves socialists, which means they must deny the existence of God, especially people who deny God, they have to have their own God, and it's government. And so they're going to say, look to the government as the supreme example for how you ought to live. Right? I would not do that. The government's a lousy example. That's the truth. Do you know who you should be looking to as an example for how you should live? Jesus. Jesus didn't expense other people's resources. He expensed his own. You and I need to make sure that we're all, as followers of Christ, make sure that we are always following the example of Jesus. Not the example of others, not the example of government, but the example of Jesus. This is so vital. Because if you're going to live a life of generosity, you might as well imitate the one who exemplified the greatest amount of generosity. Jesus was looking to make an investment, and you should too. Here are three things. This is not necessarily specific items to invest in. This is a perspective. This is a view that you should have considering generosity. Here's three things that you should make sure you're mindful of when it comes to investing. Number one, you need to invest in the kingdom. Christian, you should be investing in the kingdom. Jesus says in this same sermon, in this same chapter, just about 12 verses later, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Above everything else, before anything else, seek first the kingdom. And so if I am going to invest, then you better believe I'm going to invest in the kingdom. And what does that mean? My eye is on eternity. As I invest, as I give, my eye is not on just the immediate fix or the immediate help, but is on eternity. I am not giving with this short-sightedness that I can't see that God could actually use this gift to do something far greater than put food in somebody's mouth, but maybe to put his son in somebody's heart. I'm making the same gift now. I'm making the same investment. It might be the same amount in this instance, but I am seeing it for the kingdom, not just for this purpose that's right in front of me. I'm also going to invest in the gospel. If you want to be generous like Jesus, you need to invest in the gospel. You need to be mindful that the world does not just need a full stomach. The world needs a savior. The world doesn't just need physical, tangible things. The world needs Jesus. And I am so tired of Christians being so narrow-minded that they think they've got to help with all these humanitarian causes that never exalt the name of Jesus. If they don't exalt Jesus, you don't owe them a dime. You don't owe them a dime. I will find people and places that will exalt the name of Jesus, and I will give there. They may be doing the same thing. Samaritan's Purse is doing the same thing as the Red Cross. Guess who I'm going with? Guess who I'm going with? Because they're going to exalt Jesus, and the other is going to exalt themselves and have another telethon. It's the truth. They're going to make a name for themselves, and one is making much of Jesus. Invest in the gospel. There are so many needs out here. I promise you, there are Christian ministries that are addressing these needs. Hope Ministry is addressing hunger in Wilkes County. There are real ministries that are helping people with the here and now, and at the same time pointing them to Jesus. And that's who you need to be giving towards. That's who you need to yoke up with. I am not going to put resources in somebody that can't see past an immediate need. If that organization can't see something bigger than just what's right in front of them, I'm not going to be able to work with them. But if they can see that this person not only needs help today, but they need help for the future, for eternity, that they need eternal health, I can help them. I can work with them. I can give towards them. And you should too. I'm thankful. Our church, kingdom-based. Our church, gospel-focused. And I'm thankful we've got 13 ministries and missionaries that we support every single month. We're not supporting them to come here and do something for us. We're supporting them so that they can continue to do the mission that God's called them to. That's giving with the gospel in mind. And the third thing is you have to be willing to invest in others. Jesus proved this, didn't he? He said, hey, I just want you to know, I came down here for sick people. He said, people that are well have no need of me, but the sick do. He knew that he was there to help people. At the end of the day, you've got to be willing to get your hands dirty if you're going to be generous. You know, you've got these supremely wealthy billionaires, and they've got all of these foundations, and they do this and do this. And I wonder, do they ever get their hands dirty? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm going to give that guy that's just throwing money at it as much credit as the guy that's throwing himself at it. I'm just being honest. Jesus, the King of the world, literally, King of the world, undisputed, King of the world. And what did he do? He did not throw wealth at the sin problem. He did not throw money at the unforgiveness problem. He invested himself for others. That's the example we've got to be willing to follow. You've got to find ways to invest yourself. You've got to do it for the kingdom with the gospel in mind. But you'll have to get your hands dirty because it's going to be in other people's lives. That's okay. You're following a great example. That's exactly what Jesus did. Lastly, being generous indicates our address. Did you know that? That being generous indicates where you live. Jesus put it this way in verse 21. And where your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. Wherever you might physically live, Jesus says, I'll tell you where you live. I'll tell you exactly where you live. You live where your treasure is. If your treasure is in you, if you invest all of your resources and time and abilities in yourself, then you are your own treasure. You've made it all about you. Your heart's pointing right back at itself. Jesus says if you invest in your job, all of your energy and effort and time, you're just nonstop in your job, that's where your heart is. That's what you're all about. If you invest in your hobbies and your interests and special events, that's where your heart is. Jesus will tell you the location of your life based on the location of your treasure. He says, where your treasure is, that's where you are. Man, this is great. It's like this spiritual EKG that Jesus says we can have. And you can self-test anytime. Where's my treasure? That's going to tell you where your heart is. So what does this mean? Oh man, this makes much of Jesus. Do a spiritual EKG on Jesus. Where was his treasure? I wrote down in my notes, I found his treasure at the cross. That's where I found his treasure. The most despised place anybody could go. The most hated ending anybody could have. And that's the way he went. His heart was for you and for me. And so he put his treasure right there on that cross. Because the greatest treasure you've got is your life. The greatest treasure you have is the breath in your lungs. And he put it right there on that cross for me and you. So here's the question. Where's your treasure at? And after today, where's it going to be? Does your treasure need to change locations? Jesus said, oh, don't put it on this earth. Don't store it up here. Put it somewhere where it can be kept, watched over. Put it with me. Put it with my desires, my will, my purposes. Put it somewhere for the kingdom. Put it somewhere for the gospel. Put your treasure somewhere where people's lives are going to be changed forever. Invest yourself in those places. Let your heart be in those places because that's where you want to be found. One day, Christian, they're going to lay you in a box. Myself or another minister is going to stand over that box. I hope it'll be said, they were generous just like Jesus. They gave liberally, willingly, not just with their words, but you could see it in their lives. Glimpses of Jesus throughout the decades that they lived. You could see him showing up in them. And the eagerness that they displayed to give. And they didn't give selfishly to put their own name on a building. They didn't give so that somebody might put a plaque in their hands. They gave because they wanted people to know the one who had given the most to them. You see, Christian, that's why we've got to be generous. Because when we're generous like Jesus, we don't point to ourselves. We point to our Savior, our King. It's a selfish thing to give, and the recognition stops back at you. That's so temporary. Whose life's going to get changed by that? Give so that the recognition goes through you and straight to Jesus. That'll last forever. You stand with me, please. Hey, this is you and God time, right? How has the Lord spoken to your heart, and how do you need to speak back? What has God impressed upon your heart during this time? What's he wanting? He's always working. He's relentless. He's always endeavoring to make you more like him. What does he want today? If you and Jesus did that spiritual EKG, we're going to find the location of your heart. What would he see? Where's your treasure? And if you don't like the answer to the question, tell him. Jesus, that my treasure might be put somewhere that honors you. Because that's where I want my heart to be. That's where I want my life to be. In a place that honors you. In a position that you're pleased with. Jesus, our desire is that you would be magnified in every message that's preached, that you would be exalted and no one else. We've made much of you. We've declared the generosity that you've put on full display. No one could accuse you of being selfish or stingy or cheap. And you didn't withhold a thing. You gave liberally. With words and actions. Can we take a moment, Jesus, just to thank you for the generosity that you have shown towards us? It's so good that you are like us in some ways, but perfectly unlike us in others. Thank you for your perfect example. Your perfect willingness to lay down even your life. You're our master. We're going to follow you. I'm mindful of a song, Lord, wherever he leads, I'll go. I'll follow my Christ who loves me so. Wherever he leads, I'll go. Lord, I pray that that can be said of our lives. That we followed you every step of the way. Now we love you and we honor you. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. Amen. Believe it or not, this timing is impeccably just perfect for what's going on here in just a moment when you leave. We're taking up a love offering. Did you get that? We mentioned this last week. We are stuffing 125 backpacks with school supplies, and we're giving them away this coming Saturday from 10 to 12 to the first 125 people that show up that need them for their children. We have some grandparents come to pick them up for grandkids. If you know of someone that's in need, listen, we cannot reserve them. We have told the community that they're going to be here first come, first serve, and so we're going to keep our word for that. But you can tell them to be here at 10 o'clock, and they probably got a pretty good shot at getting one or two, however many they need. Now, the way that you can help is not only do we have some folks helping with purchasing the school supplies and stuff in the backpacks, but we need you to give towards this effort. And just so you know, this is more than just crayons and a notebook, but we're attaching to the gospel to every backpack. We have the film, the Jesus film, that we've given out during VBS And it's in multiple languages so that a family that speaks Spanish could watch it as well. But it's an excellent movie about the life of Christ, and that's going to be put in every backpack as well as some information about the church. So we are attaching the gospel to our act of generosity here. And as you leave, there'll be a lady at that door and at that door, and you can place your love offering in the basket. Our other attendants will be there to take your regular offering if you'd like to give there. But just know that those girls and the baskets they hold are just for the school supplies, okay? Good? All right, Lawrence, come on up here, brother. Use the pulpit mic. He's going to lead us in the blessing. You guys give Lawrence a hand. Don't you love Lawrence? Bless you, brother.
Well, y'all are familiar with this, to extend a hand to someone that you would like to bless this week. But I think probably lift another hand towards those who will be receiving those backpacks, that those kids might, if they don't know the Lord already, might come to know the Lord and be a good influence in their school. So you can repeat after me. The Lord bless you, and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. Be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you. And give you peace. Amen. Have a blessed week.